So, the inception of the mind. What a complex topic to dive in for a second video, but it's been really invading my head, which is ironic. The mind insisting me in speaking about the mind. I won't deny it's one of my favorite topics, one of the things I'm most passionate about. With all the philosophies of psychology, mostly psychology, psychiatry. This fluctuant format of the mind is just impressive. What can I say? But I really wanted to focus in one specific aspect of it, because when it comes to the birth of your mind, there's many ways to interpret this success, this event. And I don't know, I just think it's important to point it out, because at least to me it's not spoken with this level of protagonism. Also, I wanted to find a way that connects it to the topic of violence, and in the end offer a bit of a more poetic conclusion. Even if the mind is often conceived as, I don't know, the collection or cohesive amount of cognitive, emotional capabilities of an individual, I think that it shouldn't be seen as bluntly so simple, because even if that's what it is, in the end of the day, it also is the mechanism for that helps to build our own interpretation of reality. And that's something really powerful to think about, how there's infinite possibilities probably of how it can give us a concept of what we see in our day-to-day lives. I believe the mind is so much more than we can actually comprehend yet. Such a complex universe that is still under investigation, so that says a lot. And it can be also named in so many different ways, and it just really emphasizes its multifactorial, like its multiple shapes, how it can be so abstract, so creative, so scary, logical, impulsive, functional or dysfunctional. Either way, it is so many it has so many fields in which it can bloom, and therefore adapt, which sort of reminds me of how, you know, this saying that whatever you put in it, whatever you plant on it, it will grow and become almost unerasable, something that you can't erase. I'm not quite sure if that's an existent word, but it is multifacetic. That's what I'm trying to mention. But still, it becomes something that you can confectionate so well if you really set yourself and focus into that goal. The things you put in it, that you let it absorb, it leads to the part where happens the definition of the experiences. You are the one who manages the accumulation of experiences, which leads me to cite this very common question actually, that says, are we just a sum of our experiences? And I believe that we are not. Like, we experience a lot of things, that's something we can have for sure, whether they are negative or positive. But we are not an entire definition of the things that we have lived. And I guess that at this point, uh, settled, it is kind of visible now how they interconnect, how the selection of the experiences and their entrance and how they emerge in the mind is something that is really dependent on our will. A person that lacks a will is kind of battling uh, battling a dangerous field. Any person that lives under this context is just constantly trying to escalate or go through a wall that they have built themselves somehow, or undeniably, like in this inevitable kind of circumstance they are put in front of it. Sometimes experiences or things are just completely out of our control, and that's also something that the mind has it a bit hard to comprehend. It's very few the number of people that at least I have found that really interiorize and put into work well this idea, this understanding of reality, how some things simply are out of reach and there's nothing we can do to modify them. It's really uncomfortable to deal with it, to face it, to cope with it. But with all these elements that I have expressed till now, I think it's proper to explain how to me it is, or they are, the parameters, or some of them, because there's a lot of things that slowly guide you to the inception of the mind. And I really want to highlight the experiences again, because since we are little, we are exposed to so many experiences, but when it comes to the development of the consciousness, it's another story. It's very common, this child or infant amnesia, I think that's how it's called. But we all have experienced this level of amnesia, memory loss, when we are kids. We don't get to retain memories or experiences right away, or since we come into this world. It's practically impossible. Since we are kids and we obtain this capacity of bottling up the memories in our brain or mind. I think they are often synonyms or considered the same thing. These are just small little contributions to the way that we are going to shape ourselves in, whether it is thanks to another individual, the environment that we're exposed to, increasement of any emotion, fear, happiness, anguish, whatever it is. These are all experiences that have an impact in these first years of life, where we can finally be more aware of the surroundings. And this basically is one way to define the inception of the mind, how your own consciousness or mind begins to interpret or have the first interpretations of all these objects, stimulations that you find yourself reacting to observing, feeling, smelling, touching. All these senses become overstimulated, and our brain has the mission of decoding everything. And of course, through all this particular selection that we all have, and by that I mean the focus, we choose, therefore, these exact things that get to activate this more curious side of our head. I think I can keep it in this simple way, this first explanation of what I think is the inception of the mind, like just the first memories that we get to recall over time, the oldest things that we can really go back in time and situate ourselves in that moment of the past. But also, as I said before, any person, any human, can be exposed to so many different contexts, and that's, I think, this is the aperture to my second conceptualization of the inception of the mind. Let's imagine this person that has lived for many years now. They have defined their personality, how they feel about themselves, who they think they are. They have their own idea of the world, their own interpretation of reality. They find this very specific stimulation. It could be anything. There's a lot of variables that we can consider when it comes to this, but just so you can have an idea, I put it in this way. This specimen, and I'm really asking you to try to picture this just random person that has their own amount of experiences and idea of their life, or how things should be, or what is morally correct or incorrect, what values they live by, a complete individual that has everything apparently figured out. And all of a sudden they are in front of this situation, this context, this new paradigm, and suddenly their concept of things feels threatened, like it's in front of a new attempt of changing. They could accept it as well as they could reject it. I mean, the possibilities are immense. But in the hypothetical case that they accepted and let this new thing through their mind, their brain, they are allowing their own way to be manipulated. They let this whole concept of reality that they have be manipulated. That is a new example of the inception of the mind. They are allowing this metamorphosis that is that can even feel so cathartic. And a good example of this can be the people who just go through life just accomplishing things in this monotonous rhythm. I talk about it in my first video about my idea of existence and life. I feel that we first exist, and then after this inception, we start to live when we have this moment of clarity of who we want to be, what we want to do. Someone that has a really monotonous and meaningless life, according to them or someone else, they have this new activity, this new emotional and cognitive stimulation that just feels like a new exposure to a world of possibilities. I think that's a really significant, remarkable inception. How you start to see things in new hues, in a new tone, in a new level. But also, this can be something for good or for evil, because we know very well in this world there's not only beauty, hope, or peace. There's a lot of things that we get to find, but it depends on us what we do with those and what we choose to integrate. And that's why I think I wanted to also talk about the violence, because it is one of the many factors that can influence our life. A lot of people that are often witnessing violence have a big chance of absorbing it and exteriorizing it, which is really concerning, of course. But the nature of violence, it has many ways of manifestation. We have seen through history how violence manifests, and war is definitely one of the most disgusting but crudely real examples to use to take for it. I believe that the violence comes sometimes, if not most of the time, because of the lack of communication and the intention to understand and digest the digestive the digestive activity of it. Yeah, the digestive activity of it. It depends on the person we're talking about also. But violence itself is mostly a mechanism of defense. When someone triggers this violence, it can be because of so many reasons, deep-rooted reasons. A person that was often threatened by these reactive and very destructive conductual habits of someone else out of fear, which is one of the most common, because how many times haven't society reacted with violence towards something that they fear just because they can't understand it, which is, it can be reasonable, but it's also stupid. It also feels very stupid. You can think of many events, historical events, that happened because of this. But yeah, not just to not dive too deep into it, I think I really portray very well the essence of what I feel it is, just a coping mechanism. I also wanted to share a writing that I made, a short poem. I don't feel that I followed a very overthought and correct structure. But yeah, when it comes to writing down your ideas, when it comes to art in general, there's no limits. Experimentation is the best thing. It kills perfectionism. I think I have to write it down because I can't cite it by memory. I have terrible memory sometimes. But yeah, I'm going to write it down and then read it for you. Alright, so it's titled Politics. This is really one of the poems I'm most proud of. Like, I had this sudden, and I don't know if I love it or hate it when it happens, but I had this sudden burst of creativity And I started having like these quick sentences in my mind. All of a sudden, I just rushed to grab the phone and write it all down because I just felt instantly that it had a lot of potential. But yeah, let's read it for you. Politics. What is not there to say about them? I stand on the 1,000 promotion papers, overwhelming even to my feet. The bodies become irrational, mannequins at the pouring of superficial, contrasting to the future type of words. And then there's it. The particular paradigm, an exit to the trance, a crack into the system. All of a sudden, all kind of mouths and eyes, they escape from the muted flesh, they are over me. And judge with all the strength they lack to what is actually supposed to. Since then, it doesn't matter the real concept to me. It doesn't matter the real concept to me. I'm not suicidal. Again, I'm not suicidal. Nothing of those tendencies. They said I'm not suicidal. Thank God they said it. Because in the name of them, I surely am. Once their bullet passes through my skull on a Thursday afternoon, 6:34 p.m., bathed in casualty. Drowned in the words, all covered in wild eyes, and the raw me they serve, it's accepted even when undressed. The mere qualities of just another day. But anyway, politics. So I guess this will be it for this occasion. I really enjoyed reading again this poem of mine. If anyone ever finds this poem, this video, it will be really lovely to see their own interpretation of it. What they think it actually means, despite the title being a bit too obvious. But I recognize that some lines can also get to be a bit ambiguous. But yeah, I think that's it for today. If you made it to this point, I hope you enjoyed this little chat. These topics were really interesting, even if it took me a lot to finally decide what kind of words or messages I wanted to share. So this is a type of time traveling attempt for me. Just recording myself, exposing the shape of my mind, just so I can come back later. I guess I'll see you in a while when my mind aligns with another topic that feels very right to share with my future self and the world. See you soon, someday, and have a good life and a good time.